What if the very first page of a novel warned you that even the author stretches the truth? Chapter 1 of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn opens with a boy who doesn't trust books, doesn't trust rules, and isn't sure he trusts anyone at all.
Wait, so the main character is literally calling out the author? That's a bold way to start a novel.
Let's get into the recap. Chapter 1 opens with Huck Finn speaking directly to us, the readers. He mentions that we might know him from The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and he catches us up. He and Tom found robbers' gold, $6,000 each, and Judge Thatcher invested it for them. The widow Douglas took Huck in, promising to civilise him, but Huck couldn't stand the rigid routine and ran away.
So if he ran away, why is he back at the widow's house?
Tom Sawyer convinced him to come back. Tom's starting a band of robbers, and Huck can only join if he's respectable. So Huck returns, and the widow cries over him and stuffs him back into stiff new clothes. From there, the chapter follows one long evening. Supper with a blessing Huck doesn't see the point of. A Bible lesson about Moses that Huck loses interest in the moment he finds out Moses is dead. Miss Watson, the widow's sister, drills him with a spelling book and scolds him constantly. Finally, everyone goes to bed, and Huck sits alone by his window, feeling desperately lonely, until he hears a secret signal in the dark, a cat's meow. It's Tom Sawyer, and Huck scrambles out the window to meet him. Let's look at 3 key moments. First, Huck's opening monologue. He tells us Mark Twain told the truth mainly, with some stretches. Right from the start, Twain is doing something radical. He's handing the narration to a barely educated boy and letting that boy question the reliability of the novel's own author. The technique here is first-person vernacular narration, and the tone is casual, irreverent, almost conspiratorial. Huck is talking to us like a mate, not performing for a teacher.
It does feel like he's just chatting to you, doesn't it? Like you're sitting on a fence somewhere.
Exactly, and that's deliberate. Twain wants us to trust Huck's voice, even as Huck tells us not to trust anyone else's. Second key moment, the evening at the widow's house. Huck describes every rule as a kind of prison. He sweats in his new clothes, he has to wait for grace before eating, he's lectured about Moses, scolded for smoking, told about heaven and hell. Twain uses accumulation here. He stacks one restriction on top of another until civilisation itself feels suffocating. And notice the irony. The widow scolds Huck for smoking, but takes snuff herself. Huck spots hypocrisy with effortless clarity.
That's such a kid thing to notice, though. Like, you're telling me off, but you do basically the same thing.
And that's exactly why Huck's perspective is so powerful. He cuts through adult pretension without even trying. Third key moment, the scene at the window. After everyone's asleep, Huck sits alone in his room. The stars shine, leaves rustle, an owl calls, a dog howls. He hears sounds he interprets as ghosts who can't rest in their graves. Then a spider crawls onto him, falls into the candle, and dies. Huck panics, performing superstitious rituals to ward off bad luck. The tone shifts completely here, from comedy to something genuinely eerie and sad. Twain uses natural imagery and folk superstition to show us how isolated and frightened Huck really is beneath his tough, funny exterior.
That spider moment is weirdly haunting. He's just a kid, alone in the dark, scared of what might come next.
Now, let's focus on Huck himself. In this chapter, Huck is caught between 2 worlds. There's the world of civilisation, the widow's house, clean clothes, Bible stories, manners. And there's the world of freedom, his old rags, his sugar hog's head, the open air. He's come back to civilisation, but only because Tom Sawyer made it a condition for adventure. Emotionally, Huck moves through restlessness, boredom, and irritation during the evening, and then plunges into genuine loneliness and fear when he's alone at night. He tells us he most wished he was dead. That's not a throwaway line. It reveals a boy who feels he doesn't belong anywhere.
That's actually really relatable.
That feeling of going along with something because everyone says you should, but inside you're just hollow.
And that tension between conforming and being true to yourself is going to drive the entire novel. Let's talk themes and symbols. The first major theme is civilisation versus freedom. Every detail in this chapter sets up that conflict. The widow's bell, the new clothes, the spelling book, these all represent society's attempt to mould Huck. His old rags, his pipe, his sugar hogshead represent the freedom he craves. The second theme is superstition versus religion. Miss Watson teaches Huck about heaven and hell, the official belief system. But Huck's real spiritual world is one of omens, spiders, ghosts and rituals. Twain places these two systems side by side without saying which is right. But through Huck's eyes, the superstitions feel more alive and more honest than the formal religion.
So, if I'm writing an essay, how do I actually use that? Like, what's the argument?
Great question. You could argue that Twain uses the contrast between superstition and religion to critique the emptiness of performative belief. Miss Watson talks about heaven, but Huck finds it boring and meaningless. His folk rituals, on the other hand, are deeply felt, even if they're irrational. The key is that Twain values authenticity over respectability, and that starts right here in Chapter 1.
Here's your essay tip for this chapter. When you write about Chapter 1, anchor your analysis in Huck's voice itself. Quote the opening line and talk about vernacular narration as a technique. A strong thesis might be, in Chapter 1, Twain establishes Huck's vernacular voice, not merely for realism, but as a tool to expose the contradictions of civilised society. Then use the snuff hypocrisy moment and the heaven conversation as your evidence. Examiners love it when you connect narrative voice to thematic purpose. Here's your discussion question. Huck says he doesn't take no stock in dead people, but the whole chapter is haunted by death. Owls, ghosts, the spider burning in the candle. What do you think Twain is really telling us about Huck's relationship with death? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
Great question to chew on. Thanks for watching, legends. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next chapter here on Billabong Reads.